Mackenzie Johnston with Tri-State Livestock News, bringing you discussions concerning fair cattle markets. Today we have the opportunity to chat with Trey Wasserburger of North Platte, Nebraska. He is the owner and operator of TD Angus. For starters, Trey, can you just tell me a little bit about your background and your involvement within the cattle industry?
I was raised in Gillette, Wyoming, and both sides of my family operate ranches in Wyoming, mom's side and dad's side, and did it the old-fashioned way. I mean, tough way to make a living up there, and always buying hay and fighting weather and drought and winter. And went to University of Wyoming on a rodeo scholarship, where I met my wife, and her dad is a cattle feeder here in Nebraska, and he about a 40,000 head feedlot, and it's a really unique family operation because he's not little. He's not a 1,000 head feeder, but he's not a 200,000 head feeder too. So we're like right in the middle, and so we kind of fight both battles of being little and big, and concentration at the packer level. So I started working for him, and I weaned a lot of calves for him. I ran a grow yard for him for a couple of years, and then I was breeding a lot of heifers in 2014 and 15, the golden years, 2014, 15, 16. And I was breeding a lot of heifers for Bill Rischel's customers, and got to know, and it took a great banker and a mutual friend. He's a president of First National Bank, North Platte, who's Bill's banker as well. And Bill kind of told him he was thinking about selling it. And I never owned a registered cow, never. It wasn't, when you write down your 5-year goals, this wasn't one of them. And I went and looked at the cows one day, and I mean, they're an incredible set of cows. I mean, you don't get to buy this kind of cows ever. And I kind of aligned with Bill's philosophy of making a maternal cow that's also going to, raise a steer that's going to work on the rail. And so we'll raise the bull that will produce the calf that will go all the way through the rail, and we're all the way to the packing sector. It's been a learning curve for sure. And that's kind of where I'm at now here in North Platte, Nebraska, trying to provide for my customers on a tough market, but also we're buying their calves back, and we developed a feed test for, we give out $25,000 in 5 categories, yield, prime percentage, CAB percentage, average daily gain, and cost of gain. And we're trying to add value to this segment of the industry that just seems to be shrinking by the day. And I've been really, really vocal, as you've seen on Facebook, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but that's the best thing about that's the best and worst thing about Facebook is everybody's got a microphone. I mean, and it's real time. It's awesome. I mean, if I have a thought or an idea, I can, Trump would be a bad example of that. I mean,
what do you feel are the major issues standing in the way of fair cattle markets today?
Oh, I think there's a lot of undermining issues, but none of it today matters if you don't figure out the concentration at the packer level. End of story. I mean, the fight over NCOOL is a good fight. The fight over RFID tags is a good fight. The 5014 is a good fight, but it's a very small portion of what we're looking at today. I mean, when there's little to no competition, you're going to get what you get, and that's today. And never in our life, and never in the industry, not just our generation, in the industry, have we not been able to kill cattle. And we're there. Mm-hmm. And I fought it in June. I couldn't get a bid in June. I couldn't get a bid in July, and I couldn't get a bid in August at certain times. I mean, and if this accentuated, this is not a problem. And this is what frustrates me over the industry today. This is not a new problem. It's just the bottleneck of the myriad of issues that packers are facing. And I'll give them credit. We're all facing problems, but the myriad of issues that packer is facing today with labor and efficiencies is that they've never seen it either. And we can't kill cattle. And this just accentuated what we already knew. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're all frustrated as producers and cattle feeders and cow-calf guys, because we've known about this problem. I mean, 40 years ago, My grandpa dealt with 26 packers. Not even that, 35 years ago, he had 26 packers, that regional packers that we could call and do business with. And today, on any given day, I might be lucky to have one pick up their phone call. One. And it's a scary, slippery slope. And packer retaliation and blackball is a real issue to producers. And there is a the largest processor in the nation has not and will not buy cattle from me. They won't do it. They're not going to pick up their phone call, and the feeling is mutual. But when you knock out your largest customer, your business suffers.
Can I ask what caused that?
Lots of it's probably the way I've handled myself. I'm not going to blame them entirely, because I've been so frustrated with them and the way they treat my customers. When Cargill in May, Cargill was paying $20 a hundred over what JBS was paying. I mean, we were getting $1.20 from Cargill, and JBS is bidding us and our neighbors 95 cents. I mean, $25 a hundred back. They have no problem. Throwing their stick around, and they wave a big one.
Yeah.
And I've been very, very vocal, and I've been on social media, and I've been on other platforms saying that this is a problem, because I'm just starting out in agriculture. I mean, here's the long list of agriculture. I'm right here. I mean, I just got off the block,
Right.
the starting block. And I'm already realizing, I'm looking over my shoulder wondering, how am I going to do this the rest of my life? And I've chose not to do business with them, and it wouldn't matter anyways if I could call them today, and they're not going to want to do business with me. Or it's not so much, Trey, go somewhere else, which I've been told selling fat cattle. It's mainly when the board's at $1.05 or the basis is at $1.05, they'll give me $1. I mean, they've chased me out of there. They know we don't want to do business together, and that's the way it works. And I'm not the only cattle feeder that's succumbed to that. At any kind of volume, you need one of the major fours to survive. Yeah. And it's a huge issue when you have captive supply where they don't need us. They don't need us farmer feeders. They've got the captive supply to turn to. It's scary. I mean, never in our lifetime have we seen it. We've never been able to kill cattle, and we're there today. Now, I was so excited yesterday. Carcass weights yesterday actually went down for the first time in they're down 2 pounds. Here we are. Me and my father-in-law were talking about that. We're celebrating carcass weights going down 2 pounds. We're like 18 pounds heavier than last year. But here we are celebrating cattle at $1.05, and carcass weights were down 2 pounds. That's the small victories that we have to take today. It's pathetic, but yeah, that's the situation we're in.
So how do you think we address this situation with packer concentration? What do you feel would be a solution?
There's a lot of great ideas and legislation floating around. And I'm going to start this. I want to just say this before we get started. I'm an advocate for change. If you're out there as a producer, as a cattle feeder, as a cow-calf man, and you're promoting change, I support you 100%. And I've told everybody that's been involved at the forefront of this that I support change at any level, at any idea. M-Cool has been passed around. You know what? Great. If you think that'll work, I support you 100%. And I want to see it anyways. And then, we'll get into that, but you can't tell me that the consumer doesn't care about its origin and source when you watch the summer videos and all natural gap 4 cattle are bringing $10, $15 to $25 a hundred more than conventional cattle because they care where they came from. Mm-hmm. We're proving it. Now, I've had a hard time adjusting and correlating the feeder market to the live cattle market because they do business nothing alike. So today, the feeder market, we sell hundreds of millions of feeders on the video and around the country in sale barns, and we have competition and true price discovery every day. I mean, in real time. And in the live cattle deal, in the fat cattle trade, we might be lucky to get 10% cash trade that week. Can you imagine if we went to these ranchers and said, well, this guy sold his cash cattle, 10% of his cash cattle for this, so all the rest of you 90% get it. I mean, the ranchers would lose their mind, and they should, because that's not true price discovery. So correlating the feeder market to the cash cattle market they do nothing the same, and it's embarrassing, and it's sad. There's, a year ago, there was some calls of busting up the major four packers, and you were considered a radical if you said that, and you were chastised and thrown out of a room, and you didn't get to go in with the shiny boots and the big hats because you're a radical. And that was a year ago. And you know what? I think cattle feeders are there, and it's not radical, it's real life. The calls for busting them up are legit, and I love this idea, and it's not been talked about, and because lobbying for it would be a huge uphill battle. But one of the greatest ideas that I can think of is make each packing house its own entity. So we sell cattle to say we sell cattle to Tyson Meats. There's a good chance it could go to Schuyler, Nebraska, Lexington, Nebraska, or Holcomb. What if we made those three packing houses compete against each other? What if instead they said, you sold it to Tyson, you might go to any one of these 4 or 5 packing houses. What if we just sold it to Lexington? Or what if we just sold it to Holcomb and made them compete regionally? I love that idea. I don't know what kind of steps or balance or lobbying we need to get that done. I mean, it's an uphill battle fighting they would never do that. But I think that's a solution today. It is. I think another major problem in the packing industry is that formulas and captive supply are confidential. Mm-hmm. Mandatory price reporting is like a swear word in our industry. So yesterday was Thursday. Ogallala Livestock sold 3,500 head of feeders. I can look up on my phone right now and know what they brought. I know what they brought Tuesday in North Platte. I know what they brought Monday in Ogallala. 90% of the live cattle trade today is under lock and key. Why? Why are formulas confidential? I believe in mandatory price reporting. I do. This is leverage in the cash cattle game that we don't have, that we have to go forward. Making them compete against each other, whether you bust them up and make them all their own entity, or make each packing house its own entity, make them compete against each other. Because we've closed some packing houses down in the past 20 years. A lot of it was from supply. A little bit was supply, but it was basically the packers wanted to concentrate their entity into one roof, and they did it, and they can because they can. And to get into the USDA, they let them. I think it's a huge issue. We want to see MCOOL. Yeah, we want to see 5014. We want to see these things pass. But if you don't create competition, I don't know. None of it matters, in my opinion. And I'm an advocate for change, and I will support anything that any legislation that advocates for change. But if you don't create competition at the packer level, none of it matters. I firmly believe that.
So you just mentioned 5014. Do you feel like that would create competition?
I feel like it would.
Yeah.
I've been a proprietor for 5014 since the very beginning. We went from a 3014 to a 50. My good friend Corbett Wall called for that, and he got it. And the best part about 5014, like I've told feeders, is we know in a week if this was going to work. I mean, 1 week. That's all we need. Let's try it. What are we out? what are we out? A monopolistic industry that we already got? No, we're back to the square one. So say on Monday, we say 50-14 is instituted this day, and we'll review how many cash cattle are traded by Friday. We'll know.
Yep.
Like the biggest problem with the cash cattle trade is that, the 90% that are sold on a formula or they don't care what the other 10% bring because they're already hedged, and the CME basis is so off scale that, the system is just, I'm sorry, but it's just broken. It's terribly broken. I don't know other way to put it, but the 90% of the 90% of live cattle that are traded that week on a formula through captive supply don't care what the live market is because they're already hedged, or they've got their money, and it's so, if we throw them guys, I've told a lot of I've spoken to a lot of registered breeders who've called me on the phone or came up to me in person and kind of like, hey, what would 50-14 do? And I just tell them, okay, I'm just going to imagine your bull sale day. Do you want 50 ranchers in the seats, or do you want 4? Yeah. What do you want, guys? Man, we want 50. We want those seats full of people. That's why we do a free lunch and a free delivery and a year guarantee on our bulls. I'm like, it's no different. I don't know why we treat the live cattle trade so much differently than every aspect of the industry. And I've had a lot of people in the packing industry say, well, we're different. Yeah, you have no competition. That's the only difference. That's right. The difference. Every sector of the industry has competition except you guys.
What are your overall thoughts on imports of cattle and beef, and then MCool? How does that play into our industry?
It just comes out. The report comes out. The USDA report comes out on beef exports in July, and it was like we were down 10% in 2019. And then on the flip side, on the trade deficit, imports of fresh and frozen beef were skyrocketed. And I'm not an economist, and I get schooled a lot by people that tell me I'm wrong. And I have friends in Australia and customers in Australia. Beef is at an all-time high in Australia. They went through a record drought. Obviously, their cows numbers are very down. Beef is at an all-time high in Australia. So are our imports from Australia to the U.S. So they're at an all-time high, and we're buying it and bringing it here. I don't got to be an economist to think why. And it just, I understand that we need the lean imports to supply for the grind. I get that. But why? Australia is at an all-time high, and we're importing it at record levels to here, and I can't get a bid on cash cattle. I can't get a bid, and my customers can't get a bid. Now I got a problem. Mm-hmm. If anybody, whether you're an economist of scale or a professor at some university, answer that. Answer why I can't get a bid, but you're importing it from Australia's. Their beef is at an all-time high, and we're importing it at record levels here. Why is that? Explain that to me. I should be answering questions here, but I have yet to have one person be able to answer that, and that's a problem.
So do you think MCool would help our industry situation, competition?
MCool is a slippery slope because it's a divided issue, and that's another thing we need to talk about is just unity in our industry. And I'm a member of all organizations because I advocate for change, but why we can't get along together? We're to the point now where we have never got to the DOJ ever. We have never got a full-fledged investigation into the DOJ. We've never gotten this far, and we got the right man for the job. If that our AG, the Attorney General William Barr, if you don't think he can ruffle some feathers, just talk to Michael Flynn about that. That guy has no problem getting justice, doing his job. And we've never been this far as an industry, but for some reason our organizations can't get behind it, all of them. And that's, guys, we've never been here before. The last time the DOJ was involved was in 1921 when the P&S was instituted.
Mm-hmm.
That's how long it's been, almost 100 years, guys. We're there. We got the right man for the job. Why can't we do this? I think it's hard for me. So this is my only opinion on MCool, and I'm not an economist or, some kind of legal, professor, that dives into the numbers. I'm just a simple rancher. And I sit there at all these feeder sales on the video all summer and watch these Gap 4, which is origin and source cattle, bring $20 to $30 a hundred more than conventional cattle. You can't tell me that our consumer does not want that ability to know where their food comes from, because it's showing once again the correlation between the live cattle market and the feeder cattle market there is none. I mean, they'll give me $20 a hundred to have an all natural Gap 4, which says it was raised in a humane way and a conservationist rancher, never left the ranch, goes right to the yard, no implants, no hormones. And they're willing, there's $250 a head on that carcass today. So I see it in the feeder market and lifetime origin and source pays. There is a premium, but the packer's telling us there isn't. Mm-hmm. And usually the person selling the panic is selling the pill, in my opinion. And so they're telling us I instituted a feed test for customers after the Holcomb fire. We had a lot of customers calling, what are my calves worth? What do I do? We've lost $20 a hundred on the board in a week. And I said, well, I instituted a feed test to just kind of, lots of things, collect data and see where it's hard. How do you test your program if you don't have any data? So we instituted that. And it just kind of developed into, we killed 4,000 steers. And anyways, I went to all four of the major packers. And said, hey, these cattle are going to be 90% choice and prime. And today, I saw the CAB report yesterday. Primes are rocking and rolling again. It's like $40 over a choice. Anytime this summer, a prime carcass was making the packer that we know of. They don't have to report this, by the way, but that we know of through simple math, that prime carcass was making $40 to $60 a hundred. And I went to all four of the major packers. Two of them I do business with weekly, and I said, I'm going to let you specifically get these feed test, TD Angus feed test cattle, and they will go explicitly to you, and they're going to be 90% choice and prime, and you'll get to collect all the premiums off it. But I want a special kind of grid for my customers. I want that opportunity for my customers. You know what all four of them said? Go somewhere else. Good luck. I mean, thanks, Trey. I think you got a great idea and a bright future. Why don't you go to Greeley, or why don't you go to Lexington and see what they think? And that's the state of mind they got. They're not worried about you. They're not worried about our customer whatsoever. So go back to MCool. I mean, they're telling us I've seen economic studies, and I've seen surveys of consumers that they don't care where their beef's from. But who's putting out the survey? Right. I mean, I see it in lifetime on the video, guys giving $20, $30, $40 a hundred for a Gap 4, which is origin and source. That's in the feeder market, but we go to the cash live cattle market, we don't see the premium there because the packer controls that. Mm-hmm. I have a hard time believing and at the end of the day, like 50-14, what does it hurt us if we institute it? Or what are we out? A monopolistic, business model that we're already in? Doubt it. I doubt it. So I'm an advocate for change. I think we got to see it in our lifetime.
I want to thank Trey for discussing all these cattle market issues with us today. Stay tuned for a part 2 of my interview with Trey that will be coming out tomorrow.